Morning, everyone. The debates have happened, both the English and French. French was last night, and there are debate highlights. I'm going to show you a highlight reel in a minute. I haven't watched the whole debate yet. I haven't had time, and I'm running out right after this, so it's going to have to wait, so I apologize. The memes are funny. And I think that from what I've read, that last night's debate format was much better, although the interpreter, the translator for Mr. Bernier in the English translation messed some things up. In one case, Mr. Bernier said there were 500 scientists who signed this there's no climate emergency letter, and the translator said there were our number. So I mean that's a poor translation of because he said 500. So here's the French language leaders debate. Standout moments according to Global News. I'm probably going to go through and do my own standout moments, I hope, if I find time. Sometimes I want to do a video and it just doesn't happen, just doesn't come together, and there are various reasons for that, but here's a good 15 minutes if you want to. Too long didn't read on the debate. And again, I don't want to give you too many pieces of opinion because they're not my opinion. I haven't seen the debate yet, so I can't tell you if I thought Bernier did well. I really can't. The clips I've seen and I've heard about the scrum afterwards is that that it was a better format. So I hope that it's better for people to make up their mind about what the leaders are about. That's what I hope. So I'll tell you when I watch it. Okay, here is something that I want to highlight. Here, Mr. Bill is tweeting, quote, "Canadian taxpayers are on the hook for the carbon offsets, which Trudeau purchased for his campaign planes at a cost of more than $5,000 per trip. But Trudeau silenced the sellers, who are Liberal friends. We must get rid of this corrupt government." And the Post-Millennial did some research on this. They did some investigative reporting, and well, I think it's important to highlight a few pieces to this story. One is this picture. And I didn't know what the context of this picture is, but when you look at it, it seems obvious. So here we go. Taxpayers will pay for most of Trudeau's dual jet costs, while offsets target methane. While the Liberal Party stays mum on the cost for carbon offsets it purchased to, quote, green the use of not one but two jet planes for incumbent PM Justin Trudeau's 2019 campaign, the company that sold the offsets could only offer a glimpse into a hefty price tag. Quote, "I can't divulge those costs," said Bullfrog Power spokesperson Greg Dyergrass. "I asked them if the Liberals wanted me to, but they said they said refer any questions to them." But Post-Millennial was able to learn a few things. For starters, buying offsets for a jet plane is not cheap. About $220 for each hour Trudeau's 737-200 series cargo plane is in the air, and slightly less per hour for his primary plane, a somewhat more fuel-efficient 737-800. And secondly, offsets the Liberals purchase will go towards a landfill project near Windsor, Ontario that captures methane, whose heat-trapping power in the atmosphere is 30 times that of CO2 in order to flare it. Okay, I want to point out as well, water vapor is by far the biggest greenhouse gas, and nobody ever talks about it. It's like 95% of the atmosphere, and it's the biggest greenhouse gas, clouds, etc. So water vapor, look it up. It's a very, very interesting thing that nobody talks about. And so back to the article. At an uncapped landfill. Okay, well, I'll explain this. The idea for the carbon offset is that if you put X amount of carbon, let's say 100 tons of carbon into the atmosphere, and then you pay this company to cap a landfill and take 100 pounds of carbon out of the atmosphere, then you're presumably greening the plane, right? Or greening the activity. In this case, the plane or the flight, and the reality is it doesn't remove the carbon from the atmosphere. So, like in an emergency, would you start lighting the barn on fire? No. Oh, well, okay. I mean, what if you were building another barn, right? You were building another barn. You'd paid some money to somebody to build another barn, so it's okay to light the other barn on fire, right? So there's another one on the way. Don't worry about that. It seems weird, right? Like it seems not like the actions of somebody who believes there's a climate emergency. And the other part of this is it's easily provable, and I did a video the other day talking about the fact that carbon taxes don't reduce emissions. So it's easily provable that this carbon capture idea, or paying for carbon offsets, it's not reducing emissions at all. It doesn't reduce emissions. You can see that over the time period. You can compare Ontario and British Columbia. British Columbia with a tax, Ontario without a tax, and Ontario had a higher reduction in greenhouse gases over the same time period. So that's an uncomfortable reality. That's an uncomfortable situation. And now I want to address the picture, because I thought, man, like, this is not great. Not a great look for the Liberals, because Mr. Butts is a WWF former CEO and former Ontario, Dalton McGuinty. He's the Ontario Premier, former Ontario Premier, who Gerald Butts was an advisor to before he was advisor to Kathleen Wynne and then Justin Trudeau. And so all of this looks a little shady until there's context, because context matters. Quote, back to the post-millennial, asked about the relationship between Gerald Butts, Trudeau's campaign manager and former top aide, and Bullfrog co-founder Tom Heintzman, Dry Gas dismissed the photo of the pair circulating on social media as proof Heintzman was, quote, getting a kickback. That's from the 2012 World Wildlife Fund CN Tower stair climb. I think everyone who climbed the tower that day has a picture with Gerald Butts, he said. So if somebody's saying Tom's getting kickbacks because the Liberals are buying carbon offsets, well, Tom hasn't had a financial interest in more than 6 years in the company, so he wouldn't benefit in any way from what is, by the way, a very, very small purchase in the context of our business. Okay, and so that's true. And I looked up Mr. Heinzma, and he's in a different, like, he doesn't work for Bullfrog anymore. He's in a different, I can actually tell you, he's right here. And he works for JCM Power now since November 2013. So totally right, and good to add context, because you don't need to have fake news, right? We don't like fake news. And here's the end of the post-millennial article. It says, while Heintzman isn't getting a kickback, taxpayers ultimately take on Trudeau's jet plane usage and the carbon offsets he purchased to the tune of up to 75% worth of tax credits all political donations receive. So there's a component of taxpayer money going to this company, but it doesn't reduce CO2, it doesn't reduce emissions, and that's really the point. And to dispel this idea that there's a connection here, because other than this photo, I haven't seen any evidence of a connection. So I wanted to dispel that. I wanted to talk about that because it's important. Okay, here's the last one for this morning, and I thought this was weird. Laurie Goldstein is saying, despite leadership questions, Scheer says Conservatives are united behind him. The other day, I saw a report about Peter MacKay and top Conservative generals, etc. Top placed Conservative people are talking about Peter MacKay laying the groundwork to undermine Mr. Scheer. And well, I think that's a weird article to run with in the Globe and Mail. And even this is today's article, October 11th. Today is October 11th. And the Globe says, despite leadership questions, Scheer says Conservatives are united behind him. The whole Peter MacKay story in and of itself kind of stank to me. It didn't seem like it was as borne out as the story made it sound. And it just seems like a weird thing to run in the middle of an election. And I don't know if it's manufactured. I don't have any inside information about it or anything like that. But I opened the article, I read the article, and I read the quotes, and I thought, how verified is this? How many people has this gone through to make sure that this is accurate? Because it doesn't seem like anyone would do this during an election period. It just doesn't seem like anyone paying attention would do it. So I don't know. But here is the follow-up, and it's talking about Scheer saying Conservatives are united behind him despite leadership questions. So basically, this article is Scheer saying, what I know is our entire team is excited for the election on October 21st. And this is the part that I thought was weird, because this is what the whole story is based on, right? In the report, this is to the article, quote, in the report, veteran Conservative Party insider John Capobianco, a senior vice president at the public relations and marketing agency Fleshman Hillard Incorporated, confirmed to the Globe and Mail that friends of Mr. MacKay had discussed the possibility he could seek the leadership if Mr. Scheer fails to form the next government. And the more I thought about that is, like, how much does Mr. MacKay have involvement in that? How much are his friends just talking? If John Capobianco heard and understood correctly, yeah, the whole thing seems a lot more smoke than fire, in my opinion. And again, it just seemed odd to me. Anyway, take it for what it is. I don't know. In the middle of an election campaign, this is hardly a bombshell. I mean, like, Scheer has an automatic leadership review if he loses the prime ministership after this election. And that's well known. It's not news. It's well known. And if Peter MacKay is talking about that, looking at the polls, I mean, maybe, but not likely. Anyway, weird. Just weird. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to vote. Voting day is 10 days away. And this is the start of Thanksgiving weekend. So here we go. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. I'll be around. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.